Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today we are doing a full Tegu care guide. So let's get started. Hey guys, so we have been waiting to do one of these care guides for a long time. I've got a couple friends who have Tegus, but finally we were able to go out and film one. We went over to a buddy over at Rupp Reptiles. Real quick, I'm going to show you a couple of the other things that he has. He's got a lot of hog noses, really cool ball pythons. He works with a few different things that I have never even heard of before, genetics wise. He's got really cool stuff, carpet pythons. He's got a Tegu. But if you guys are interested in anything, I'm going to link his Instagram. I'm going to show you guys his morphmarket. But he was nice enough to let us come over and film and play with his Tegu and go see a lot of his animals. So make sure you guys check him out. He's located local like we are in the New York area. He's closer to Lockport and we're closer to Buffalo, but still very, so definitely go and check him out. I really appreciate the time that he gave us. So we're going to do a full Tegu care guide for you guys. So first thing is there are different types of Tegu. The most common are the Argentina and the Colombian Tegu. So in this one specifically, we're going to be talking about the Argentina. The reason specifically why we are picking the Argentina to talk about today is they tend to be on the friendlier side. Doesn't mean a Colombian won't, but they're known to be a little bit more friendly. They do get on the larger side, but they are very good pets, or they can be if taken care of properly. So that's what this beautiful guy is. The one that we went to go see is a black and white. There are different colors and types of Tegus. We're not going to go crazy in depth because this is mostly about their care. But there are very simple ones like black and white. There are blue, which look very similar to black and white, but they're a little bit higher white. There are reds. You can get albinos, but you can get several different colors and patterns when it comes to Tegus. When getting a Tegu, you need to know that these guys need a very large enclosure. So these guys, at a minimum, when they are full-grown adults, it's recommended for an 8x4x4 enclosure, which might sound very large, but these guys can get up to 5 feet long, normally staying around 3 to 4 feet. It'll also depend on if you have a male or a female, but an 8x4x4 is recommended. The reason why is these guys not only get very large, but they need specific temperature ranges, and it's kind of hard to get with smaller cages. So these are Ackies behind us. These are 5x2x2 enclosures, and they've got a ton of places to climb around to burrow. But these guys are only about the size of bearded dragons, lengthwise. And these guys are in 5x2x2s. A Tegu is also a species that needs to be able to move around. They don't need to be able to climb and get into things as much as these Ackies do, but they still need to be able to move around, and they have a certain temperature that they need. So when it comes to their enclosures, even if 4 foot sounds very tall, both these cages together are 4 foot tall. So a Tegu cage would go from the ground to the top of here. The reason why that is they actually need a good substrate barrier, because you're supposed to give them at minimum 12 inches for them to be able to dig and burrow inside of. So pretty much from here to the ground would be a big substrate barrier. Your door would be up here higher, and that would be a space for that animal to be able to burrow, to be able to dig. There are species that really thrive from that, so it's something you're going to want to consider. So again, 4 feet sounds really tall until you have an animal the size of, a dog inside of a cage. And they also need certain temperatures. So their hot spot is going to be between 105 and 110. Their warmer side of the cage are going to be looking at 85, 90, 95. And then the very cold side, you're looking at 75 to 80 degrees. So there needs to be a very big variation between their hot spot and cold spot, and that's kind of hard to do when you have a small enclosure. So the larger the enclosure, the easier it is for you kind of to tinker with the temperatures and stuff. So make sure you have a lot of room set aside if you are interested in getting a Tegu. Now Tegus can even live 20 years in captivity. So you again want to make sure not only do you have a very large space, but you're planning to keep this animal for a very long time. Most reptiles can live a lot longer than people, expect them to. A ball python can live 40 years. It's a very long commitment when you get a reptile, so make sure if you want a Tegu, that's awesome. Just make sure you are ready for a 20-year commitment. Very similar to bearded dragons, these guys do well with a 12-hour on, 12-hour off light cycle. Same with these Ackies. Actually, shortly, even during this video, you'll see all these lights turn off. We have them on a reptile timer. So 12 hours a day, they have full spectrum UVB over here, which is why this is a little bit more blue in color. And then on this side, or vice versa, on this side is their hot spot. So Tegus also are going to need full spectrum UVB. Now a good example are these cages. These are 5-foot cages. We have 4-foot UVBs, and then we have their hot spot basking over here. So let's say you're going to get an 8-foot long cage, you're going to want at least a 6-foot long, and because you have a 4-foot wide cage, it's not a bad idea to have 2 UVB 6-foot long tube lamps for you guys to be putting out good UVB. You don't want to give them any kind of issues or problems, so you want to make sure to make them as strong and healthy as possible. You have the proper UVB, you have the proper temperatures. For humidity, these guys like it pretty humid, up around 70, 75, 80% humidity. The best way to do that is you have an enclosed cage like these guys, not like, for example, an iguana where a lot of people do screen lids for a lot of airflow. You want something that's enclosed so you can actually control the humidity better, the temperature better. And when it comes to bedding or substrate for these guys, you can get coconut fiber like we have stacked up over here. This is what we use for our ball pythons. You can use that mixed up. You can get also cypress mulch. Make sure everything that you get, like let's say you get a cypress mulch coconut husk, make sure that you're not getting it from like a hardware store. You want something that's specifically for animals because they can have different kind of chemicals, they can have different pesticides, a lot of toxic things in there. So make sure whatever you are getting for them that it is safe for them to actually be using. Now, when you get a Tegu, you are going to need to be starting off in a smaller enclosure. And a big tip for you guys is, let's say you want to get a baby Tegu and you have, like, let's say a glass tank. The reason why I'm going to say you probably want to get a better type of enclosure is if you have a glass tank, most of them, unless it's a terrarium, is top opening. These guys are very smart, very intelligent, and when they are tiny babies, they just see a big scary monster reaching in from above, picking them up, and it will scare them. They could become aggressive. They could not be very well socialized. They can hiss. They can bite. So if you get an open front enclosure, even if it's a smaller one to start off with, let's say a 3x2x2 or something like that, just to get them started as babies, that allows you to open the enclosure, put your hand in, allow the baby to come to you. Even very young Tegus are... Even very young Tegus are very curious, they're very smart, they're very intelligent. So just by putting your hand simply something like this and letting them crawl out to you, they're not just going to attack you, they're going to investigate, and slowly over time they're going to start climbing on you, they're going to start, acclimating to people, and it's a very good way to socialize them when they are young. They can be awesome, very friendly, just like this guy, super friendly guy. They can be food aggressive. That way, he was nice and full, so when we took him out, he was easy and sweet as could be. But all Tegus can be, for example, food aggressive. All Tegus can have, they call it their terrible twos. It's like their teenage phase when they hit anywhere, like normally when they hit puberty. So when they hit anywhere from 9 months to 2 years old, depending on how fast their growth rate is, they can hit their terrible twos, their bad teenage years, and they can be very puffy. They can huff up a lot. They can bite. They can tail whip. And a lot of people give up on them at that stage. But if you just keep working with them, give them their space, but also give them good socialization. When you're feeding them, that's a great time to socialize with that Tegu because, if you're feeding them, their mouth's full, and you can give them a nice little pat. You can show them and tongue feed them. That way they know, for example, you are the friend. You're the one giving them the food. They are very smart, but socialization for these guys is key. Make sure you want to handle them, you want to hold them, you want to show them that you are a friend. When it comes to feeding these guys, they can do a huge range of things like dubias, mealworms, superworms, frozen thawed rodents. They can have like whole prey. They could have things like ground turkey, chicken, fish, salmon, all sorts of vegetables, all sorts of fruit. There are huge lists out there that you guys can look up. But with these guys, sometimes they can be picky. Like they only want their bugs, they only want their meats. And to get them to eat vegetables, to give them a very good, well-balanced diet, a lot of people do meal prepping pretty much for these guys. So you pick all the foods that you want to feed them. Let's say you get a whole fillet of salmon. So there's the 12 hours in those guys. But you get them a whole fillet of salmon, you get them some whole eggs, you got some blueberries, some apples, whole bunch of different vegetables, and you mix it all together, and then you can actually put it in bags and freeze it, and you can feed it to that animal. That way you are kind of tricking them into eating all of those things. You can freshly prepare those things as well each week, but as babies they're going to eat every day, so it's nice to be able to go buy things in bulk, mix it all together, kind of make them into patties, make them into like you know, a big mixture, and divide it out. That way you can freeze them and defrost them as you use them. As adults, they only need to eat every 2, 3, or 4 days. It all depends on what you're feeding them. A lot of people who do like whole prey, because it's a lot fattier of a diet, or you have a lot more things that are high in fat, then you might want to feed them a little less often. You have a very high in protein diet, you can feed them a little bit more often, but you don't want a fat Tegu. They are very cute, but it's not healthy for them, and you want them to live that 20 years, so make sure they have a good, well-balanced diet, and then you add things like calcium and D3, vitamins. That way, you know, again, between that and the UVB, they have nice strong bones, and they're going to live that 20-year life expectancy. When it comes to reptiles, they can be very easy to keep. You just have to keep certain things in mind. But that's it for this video. Again, thanks so much to Rupp Reptiles for letting us come and film his beautiful boy. But if you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We do new videos a few times a week, so I'll see you guys in the next video.